Well, this is sort of somewhat a continuation of the last topic I talked about with a different twist. But as I listened to a message by Alistair Begg today, I was just sort of struck by how uncanny it is that the lies and the deceit that was revealed in the record of Jesus before Pontius Pilate, how that is expressed virtually the same lies and deceit are done today by leadership, etc. So as I get into this, first let me make sure that it's clear that I assume that there's no contemporary anybody is on the level of Jesus. I don't endorse any. I'm not saying any what I'm going to say right now to endorse any particular leader or anything like that. In fact, the things that when we talk about the leadership I'm going to be talking about, this is across the board. You can find it anywhere. So I'll get going. So the religious leadership we were attempting to get rid of Jesus conspired. It was a plan. It was not, individual people individually showing up and just independently before Pilate and say, "Oh, we all happen to be here. We all happen to agree with something. Just what a coincidence." Okay, no. So, and we'll look at the record of this. So, in Matthew 26 in the Gospels, it reads, "Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest and said, 'What will you give me if I deliver him,'" speaking of Jesus, "to him, deliver him to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. So in Mark, it's recorded a little bit differently. It says that Judas went to the chief priest in order to betray him, Jesus. And when they heard it, they were glad, and they promised to give him money. And he sought an opportunity to betray him. In John chapter 18, 12, 14, in that area, it talks about how Caiaphas was the one who was one of the Jewish leaders, had given the other Jewish leaders counsel that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. And in this case, it appears that they're concerned that maybe people are getting excited and the Romans may not like it. So we better get rid of Jesus so that we can keep everything calm and under control and that we can maintain our power. That's what it's about. So it was a conspiracy. And they told, bald-faced lies. In John 18, 28, 32, in that area, they went to the praetorium where Pilate was. And so Pilate went out to them, the Jews, and he said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" And their response is, "If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have handed him over." Now, in everything else recorded, Pilate didn't believe he was an evildoer. No evildoing has he done that anyone's recorded, but they call him an evildoer. I see this kind of stuff all the time on the news with one group calling the other group evildoers, right? And it's bald-faced lies. They claim that somebody's doing something that clearly is not. They're not doing it. And we've had a lot of this in the news in the last several years. It's just absurd. And y'all, if you've listened to me before, you've heard me say this over and over again. It's mind-boggling, the things that I know, because I'd go ahead and try to find out what's going on. I know that the people are just lying. And much of the time, what they're saying about somebody else is what they're doing themselves. And we're finding this out in a lot of cases. So then you have, they're conspired, they do bald-faced lies, they rationalize their evil. In the case of Jesus, in his situation, Pilate, he comes back and he says to Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus replies by saying, "My kingship is not of this world. My kingship If my kingship were of this world, my servants would fight that I might not be handed over to the Jews. But my kingship is not from the world. So he's not a king of the world. He's no threat to anybody. He's not fight. His people are. We know that Peter took a shot at the ear of one of the guys out in Gethsemane, but Jesus healed his ear and said, "Stop that nonsense." Jesus was peaceful. He didn't do anything wrong either. And it's ironic. So he says this to Pilate, and then he continues to say, as it continues on a little bit later, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." And Pilate's response is, "What is the truth?" And we see this, and you might have even done that in your own life. Somebody presents something to you that is true that you don't want to deal with, and instead of saying, "Well, maybe I better take that seriously and look into it," many of us just say, "What's true? That's your truth. It's not my truth. It's your truth." Well, that's bunk. Okay, y'all. It's not true. And so that's the rationale we have. What is true? I don't know. So then they've rationalized, they've lied, they've conspired, and they manipulate. So Pilate, he can't see anything wrong with what's going on with Jesus. He's a perfectly righteous man, and as far as he can tell, and for some reason the Jews want to get rid of him. And when we say Jews, this is this is not a contemporary use of what most people are throwing around the word Jew today for. Okay, and there's more information about this that I'm not getting into this, but the Jews, they were the Jews of Jesus' day, the Jewish leadership of Jesus' day. And so Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend. Everyone who makes himself a king sets himself against Caesar." Well, Jesus has not set himself against Caesar as a earthly king. He's never claimed that. But here they are. Let's twist things a little bit and try to manipulate Pilate and make him feel concerned and scared that, well, maybe I better not cross Caesar. After all, he is my big boss. So, they say something that's not really true, is it? But they're manipulating. Any way they can, they manipulate. And then finally, they organize loud demonstrations and in order to influence decisions. They try to drown out logic. So here we are, continuing in John 19. When Pilate heard him, he brought Jesus and sat him down at the judgment seat. And then the Jews cried out, "Away with him," speaking of Jesus, "away with him. Crucify him." And Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" And the chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." Well, that's really not a statement that I think the average Jewish person would say, even in that day. They wouldn't, because they would be looking for a Jewish king only, right? So to say that Jesus was their king, they were living, Caesar was their king. They were living under Caesar, but more under an oppressed state, right? So anyway, all of this was going on. All of this went on then, and it was going on then. So it was going on then. It goes on today. So what do we know about Jesus? Jesus said, he told Pilate about him being the truth, right? And in John 14:6, Jesus said, you go read it yourself and to get the whole context. But in a response to someone, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me, or but by me. So the Jews wanted to snuff out the truth 2,000 years ago. Other entities want to ignore, hide, destroy, whatever. They want to get rid of the truth today. They're not of one party. They're not from one particular country. They're not from a particular religious institution. You can find them any and everywhere. And if you really pay attention to them, you're going to see these traits all the time. If they can, they would conspire. If they can find somebody to conspire with, they'll conspire. They'll certainly manipulate. If they have to, they often tell bald-faced lies. At the best, they tell half-truths. Sometimes they give you a fact, but they give you a fact and then spin it a particular way so that they're trying to make it sound like it means something it doesn't mean. But that's going on. They're always attacking the truth. It's the same MO for eternity. I'm looking for the truth. If you're looking for the truth, then I suggest that you pray to the Creator. Then you want to know truth. Then anything, what matters most for you is truth. And I'm confident you'll find it. Have a good day.